housekeeping items, guys. Obviously, we have our presentation today with Mr. Danser, and I'll go through the introduction. But just an FYI, we're also going to have a presentation on Monday with Matt Mann that was set up by Ashok, who's actually interning for Mr. Mann. So we look forward to that, and it'll be on Monday and not our normal Thursday schedule, okay? So Monday at 2:15, right, Ashok?
That's right.
Okay. And then by way of introduction, Tim, we have Ashok Ramkumar and Samarth Suresh. There are two co-presidents. So very impressive guys. They've done a great job this year. And Samarth is actually our analytics guy for the varsity football team, who have a big game this week against the Lancers. So he's getting ready for that.
Yeah, should be a good one.
Oh, that's great. You better tell Coach Beachman to do a good job. If not, we're all.
Yeah. He always does a great job.
So, hey guys, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Mr. Danser. Mr. Danser is a proud Bell alum, class of 2006. He epitomizes the term scholar athlete. As you look at his resume, not only was he an impressive athlete, but he's equally, if not more impressive in the classroom. He played football at Bellarmine, played football at Brown, has a wealth of experience in the financial world, and he's going to talk about that today. But more than anything, he's a guy that's gotten to where he is through a lot of hard work and resiliency. So he's a very impressive, what I call one of Bellarmine's great young alums. And with that, I'm proud to have Mr. Danser speak to you guys. Yeah. Mr. Danser, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Appreciate it. Let me try and see if I can share my screen.
We gave you presenter skills, so you're good.
So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Good to go. Great. So as Mr. Arnold said, my name's Tim Danser, but I figured prior to jumping into kind of my journey and my experience, and I plan to spend hopefully about 15 minutes telling you who I am, and then hopefully if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer. But to give you a little context on who I am right now and professionally, I was a VP of Finance, Vice President of Finance at an AI cybersecurity startup called Respond Software. And I recently led the sale of the company for $200 million to another publicly traded company called FireEye. So that's a little bit professionally of who I am today. And that's kind of to give you some context. Whatever route fits best. But prior to all of that is where did I originally start this journey was, as Mr. Arnold said, I was a Bellarmine Bell and I played football. And like all Bells, there's a lot of different facets to who I was while at Bellarmine. But for me, football was probably the single most important thing in my life. While I was at Bellarmine is both Coach Beachman and I were brought up together on the varsity our sophomore year. And we both started varsity all 3 years of our high school career. And I started both ways while I was at Bellarmine. And so as a young student athlete, I was super excited and felt very confident in myself. And I went out to go recruit for colleges to play football at colleges. I managed to land a spot and accepted a spot at Brown University. And here I was, young guy, thinking, boy, I'm going to come into the football program, contribute right away, and change how things are done here. And I will tell you what, I did contribute right away by holding bags. So I started off as the bag boy for all the varsity starters when I was a freshman. That's kind of where things began. And it was kind of a huge ego blow, to go, gosh, I was this big starter for 3 years and now I'm back down to low man on the totem pole. However, I really spent some time working hard and going to the gym and figuring things out and studying the playbook where I eventually got a start my sophomore year again. and then started all 3 years on the varsity Brown football team. And that was a huge, huge accomplishment to me, where eventually all my teammates and I won the Ivy League championship my junior year of college. And so that was a huge triumph to say, you know, in varsity athletes, you say to yourself, to be the champion is the gold standard. It's what you're all vying for. And I got there, and it was really such a pleasure and a joy. And here I am, graduation day. I've got my diploma in hand, varsity athlete. I'm an Ivy League graduate. And what I'd love to do is just take a couple moments and hear, or at least in the chat, if you wouldn't mind sending me what you think, what career this young guy with a Brown degree whose ambitions is to go to finance, what you think that would lead to. So if you guys can put in the chat some of the career paths that you think that I was eligible for, I'd love to at least see them. I see right here that there's a chat going on. And so if you can, just ping. Wall Street, yeah, that was definitely an ambition of mine. E&Y for sure. I was thinking about going the accounting route too. If anyone else has any ideas, I don't know, stockbroker for sure. That's one of the certifications I was working on, because I was thinking I was going to go into that route too. So all definitely financial advisor. That one of the things that Pat was mentioning is I covered stocks and bonds, and I was thinking of going there too. So it was definitely one of the things that I was thinking I was going to head into. But let me tell you where I ended up. I was loading kegs in and out of trucks for 4 months after graduation. So, in fact, a lot of the places were around here. So I used to deliver beer to Saratoga Springs, to Mount Winery, to even places right around Bellarmine and to Bellarmine. So that was my first job out of college. And it was really disheartening at times to say, God, it's just brutal. I went and got a 4-year degree at a really expensive college, and now I'm loading kegs in and out of trucks. But I really worked hard and was networking a lot with a lot of different folks to eventually, it got me to my first job in finance, which was Bridgebank. And at Bridgebank, the company itself, they extended loans, and they gave loans to businesses. The businesses were about $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. And they gave things like lines of credit or loans where you pay down over time. So all different types of loans. But as some of you guys kind of indicated, as I wanted to go on Wall Street and do big deals and work on IPOs and mergers and acquisitions and all that kind of stuff. And so I continued to network and meet with friends and colleagues and all of that to eventually where I got to my job at Oppenheimer. And at Oppenheimer, I got to finally do transactions. I got to do the IPOs, the M&As, all of those types of things. And the transactions we worked on were about $50 million to $800 million in size. And I know a lot of people have these different dispositions of bankers. And a lot of them think it's a work hard, party hard lifestyle. You know, you're out there closing deals, getting money, celebrating, popping off bottles of champagne. But let me tell you, as someone who's been through the X's and O's of that job, this is what it's really like. It's a lot of days where you are just doing rote, painful tasks day in and day out. But I will tell you, I spent one day, I remember I was with a bunch of bankers and a bunch of senior executives. We spent 30 minutes talking about the placement of a comma. And I kid you not, that is sometimes what banking lifestyle really is. However, by doing the little things really, really well, people eventually trust bankers, because if you're going to trust someone with $800 million, you better make sure they do every little thing right, including placing a comma the right way. And because I had all that experience and really good attention to detail, I managed to land a job at a company called Symantec. At the time, Symantec was a $6.5 billion cybersecurity company. And Symantec was working through a reorganization as well as some layoffs, which was super scary. However, I managed to raise my hand and volunteer and do the little things right to where I got to the point where I was working on a lot of big strategic corporate initiatives. One such project that I got to work on was a divestiture of a $2.5 billion business to Carlyle. So lots of great responsibility and all that. And once again, going back to the chat, what I really wanted to do was manage money. I thought it would be super cool. I don't know if a lot of you guys have ever seen 30 Rock, but there's one great scene where the main character, Liz Lemon, says, how do you do that thing where you take money and turn it into more money? That's what I wanted to learn. And my thinking behind trying to get there was going to get my MBA. So I made this pivot on over to Wharton to get my MBA there. Great school, but I will tell you some of the fantastic unintended consequences of it, where I got to meet some of the most amazing people in the world. People who have, they were on SEAL Team 6 or pro football players or founders of companies already or working their way there. Just incredible different countries. I got to play rugby in South Africa. I saw the Aurora Borealis in Iceland. I mean, just amazing experiences at Wharton, as well as I got to finally manage money. And I realized, though, through that experience, is that for me, it wasn't the right fit. It's not to say it's not an amazing job, because it really is. It's just skills and interests are misaligned at some times. And for me, my job at Franklin Templeton covering high yield fixed income wasn't really the right fit for me relative to what I wanted to do. And so I got this chance to sit on back, look at what I really wanted and reassess my goals and priorities and ambitions. And with that, I graduated from Wharton and I landed a job at a company called Respond Software. At the time, Respond, and I was brought on as the company's director of finance, which included things like doing financial modeling, valuing the company, and presenting to the board and all that. At the time I joined, Respond was a 20-person company. It was a product. There was no sales, no marketing, nothing. It was great people and a great idea and a great goal in mind that they wanted to solve. And so a lot of folks have this idea of what working at a startup is like, you know, going to a big tech conference, presenting to investors, making a big pitch. And there is some truth to that. There's definitely those days where it's high stakes, high reward, lots of fun. But I will tell you, startups are resource constrained. My second week on the job, I was plunging toilets. That was part of my day-to-day, was just keeping the office running because we didn't have the money to do anything else. I mean, there were days where the circuit breaker went out or Mountain View lost all of its internet. So, you know, there's those crazy days too that come with the startup life. But by doing the little things right, by doing the tiny things like plunging a toilet just the right way and making sure it's unclogged and doing the job right, I eventually gained my boss's trust that if I'm going to pay attention to the little things, they lead to bigger things. So by the time that fast forward 3 years later, I was managing Respond's finance, legal, HR, and business operations units. Now, keep in mind that all those things I was still talking about, the little annoying things that were sucky, still had to get done. So that meant I was still friggin' plunging toilets. But as I said, as each one of those little things, I gained more and more respect from my boss and more he trusted me. And so it eventually got to the point where he trusted me to sell his business to another business unit, which led to this recent acquisition that I just finished up for Respond Software to FireEye. And with all of that in mind, though, let me just say is I don't believe any one person has the formula to professional success. I think if anyone does, they're lying to you. I think what really folks have is what's worked well for them. And so I can't give you a formula that's going to blanketly work no matter what. What I'd love to do, though, is just share with you what I think works well or has worked well for me. One is way over deliver on the crappy things. Things like plunging toilets or doing menial tasks, do them to the best of your ability. Because if you can do the little things right, then people will give you more and more responsibility over time. At the end of the day, you gotta keep pushing. I mean, there was a lot of days where, I'm lifting kegs going like, gosh, this is so brutal. I don't want to do this anymore. There were days as a tech startup where we were going through coronavirus and we were terrified of what was going to happen. But by being resilient and keep working, we managed, I and my companies and all that managed to get through some of the hardest times through my professional career. At the end of the day, the work's got to get done. You're never better or never higher than the things, the day-to-day that has to get completed. Additionally, my dad always told me the same people that you see on the way up on the corporate ladder are the same ones when you start coming down, unfortunately. And to give you some context around that is, when I was at Oppenheimer, I was making big money. And at Symantec, I took a demotion. And more recently is at my last company, I was a vice president of finance, and I'm now a senior director. Sometimes you get knocked down a peg or two, which is okay. Always be kind to everyone around you, because you just never know who you run into again. But most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, the most important thing in your life at the end of the day is your relationships. The people that you make bonds with, family and friends that you connect with, those are the folks that they really make the biggest difference in your life and your professional career. And why I say that is because Bellarmine has been, I've got 2 Ivy League degrees, and I don't mean to say that to be arrogant, and they're great schools, but Bellarmine has by far helped me professionally more than any other institution that I've been a part of. My first job at my commercial bank, I got through my brother. My second job, I got through a friend who I met at a networking event at Brown. My third job, I explained to a friend of mine at a trivia night I was with, hey, I'm not really happy with this job. He goes, a guy I knew at Bellarmine, he was one of my groomsmen. He says, great, give me your resume, I'll send it on into my company. And he did. The last job I was at, the cybersecurity startup company, I was at dinner with a Bellarmine friend who introduced me to a CEO who is a Bellarmine dad, who had 3 Bellarmine kids, and they all eventually led me to getting a lot of the jobs that I got. Never underestimate the power of your Bellarmine relationships and the connections and the network you make. And remember that that is always super, super important in your career. And with that said, Pat, I will stop talking, quit going through all the spiel that I have, and let me know what the next steps are, or if you want to take questions or what.
First of all, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Danser. That was a great presentation. And I think you guys can feel his enthusiasm. So, again, don't underestimate how important it is to love what you do. With that, Ashok and Samarth, you want to open it up to questions? I'm sure we'll have plenty.
Yeah, let's just get hands in using the hand raise feature, and ask Mr. Danser whatever you need.
And guys, don't be shy. Trust me. One of my weaknesses, or I don't know if this is a weakness or a strength, is I try to be sensitive, but I can definitely take a beating. So if you say to me, I don't understand this stupid thing you did, Tim, can you explain it to me? I'm happy to do it.
Mr. Danser, I got a quick question to kind of get everything started. So when you kind of made your way into kind of this a technology company, how was it different than doing finance in a non-technology company?
It's a great question. So when you're as a banker, a great thing to think through when you're looking at different companies and where you want to work is when you're at a financial institution, finance and doing transactional work, being an actual person, those are the rock stars of the company. They're the people that make the business run. So at that point, that's where you're really leading a lot of the activity and you're working on driving things. Now, when you're joining a tech company as a finance person, you're making other people succeed. For someone like me, surprisingly, it was a great fit because where I came from is I was an offensive lineman. I never scored the touchdowns. The guy, pushing people out of the way. It's what I enjoy doing. And so that just fit me really well, is helping people succeed rather than scoring the touchdowns at the end of the day.
Nice. I like that analogy.
I have another question before we get to the rest of the club members. So you mentioned that the Bellarmine network you found was a lot more powerful than the other ones you've had at Brown and Penn. I was wondering what you think makes Bellarmine's network so powerful and how we, like right now or college, can best leverage that.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part. How college what?
I was asking how we, as high school students now and student in college, can leverage that network the best.
Yeah. I will tell you. So I made the biggest mistake of my life when I went to college, which was I had a ton of great Bellarmine friends and relationships and all of that I had originally said, like, don't think of building a network. Think of building a group of friends, because your friends are going to help you. People that you get a business card for aren't necessarily going to do anything for you. So one thing that I didn't do is I didn't just pick up the phone and call my buddies from Bellarmine. I should have done that. And it meant that after my 4 years of being on Rhode Island, I came back home and I really kind of let all my friendships fall to the wayside. And I'm starting from the ground up. And that's just, guys, for lack of a better way to say it, making friends again. Just your old friendships that you had. You have to start from ground zero. I mean, do not underestimate the power of just meeting up. And I know no one has drank a single ounce of alcohol here, so it's all good. But eventually, when you're 21, grabbing a beer and doing great fun social things, going out, lifting weights, things like that, they make such a big difference in the long run than necessarily just getting a business card from a guy. It doesn't make as big a difference. Just continue to call, to reach out. And as awkward as it is to just call and reach out and hit people up, I mean, look at Mr. Arnold and I's. He just hit me up this week and said, Tim, like, I've got this great opportunity. And I raised my hand and said, hell yes, I definitely would love to do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Questions. Evan, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I was just wondering, what's been like the most important individual decision of your life?
Ooh. The most important individual decision. I'm sure Mr. Arnold and Steve and all you guys can attest to this, and it's something you guys hopefully will eventually get to, is the person you marry.
Yeah, I knew I was going to say he better go there.
I will tell you. So, my wife and I, we work on everything as a team. There are really, really painful days where, you just like, gosh, this person, if they only understood me better. But there are days where, like, I know a lot of, at the same time I was at Bellarmine, keep in mind, I was an idiot, guys. I was kicking car doors because I didn't know any better. That's like the type of person I was at the time. But the person that you marry, you get to share those experiences with, and you get to understand like how you go about every single day. It's hard to even explain why that's important, but having someone my wife and I, we've been together 10 years. So she knows what I like, what I don't, and she'll make calls like, Tim, you're being in this professional situation, you need to do this. Or Tim, like, don't just think you need to leave a company just because it's been a certain amount of time. Those little things where you get to bounce ideas off of someone who really knows it out is actually much more helpful. And right now it's your parents. Your parents, you bounce those ideas off of, but hopefully it'll one day be your spouse or significant other, whoever that may be.
Charles?
Awesome. Thank you.
Why don't we go, Charles?
Yeah, I just want to know, like, how did you utilize your time at Bellarmine in order to find out your passion for finance when you studied at Brown?
Great question. So it's funny how I kind of got there. Math always came very natural to me. So I was in a lot of mathy classes like physics and geometry and all that. I really excelled at. And I gotta admit is when you're sitting there physics and you're pulling on a little pulley going like, well, is this important? Or in geometry, when you're seeing like, how does the radius go, why does that matter and why is it important? And at the time you can't see the forest through the trees. So there's little things I got to admit is like, within some of these professions, some of these careers, you can leverage all those things. There's nothing that you're studying right now that can't be applied professionally. But just things that you find joy out of, or at least that you're really good and that you continue to embrace, that's what you want to lean into. So for me, I just kept doing math, and it felt natural to me. It felt really easy and really good. And as I was saying to the group in the beginning, is I ain't too good with words. So I'm not going to get involved in English or writing or any of that. Now, granted, I need that. But for me, my bread and butter is numbers and math. And so that's what at Bellarmine, I really kind of figured out, or at least what I felt good doing in school. That's where I started leaning into more.
Good. Liam?
Yeah, I know you were talking about how like persevering through maybe uncertain times really helps you get through those. But I was wondering what like mentally helped you to persevere through that. Like, what did you keep telling yourself, and how did you like keep your head up and stay positive through those times?
You know, I know not everyone can relate to this, but when I was a freshman at Bellarmine, I was on the football team, and we had one day where Coach Benson made us do 140 up downs in a row. I was dying. I was absolutely dying. I was just on the brink, and just that little voice kept saying, go, go, and go. And I will say, you know, one thing that I learned at Bellarmine is history is really important. And Saint Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuit order, right now the Jesuits are scholars. That's what they're known for. But Saint Ignatius was a warrior. And what always kind of kept me going was knowing that I have this intrinsic Ignatian idea behind me that keeps telling me to push on, because you have to keep going forward on everything. No one's going to give you a single damn thing in life. So you're going to have to fight for it, which is what Bellarmine is a small part of it is teaching you, is how to fight through things that are difficult. That's what the Ignatian spirit is all about. And that's what that warrior mentality is about.
That's great. Aiden?
Yeah, so in terms of football, were there like any like small thoughts of you, because clearly you enjoyed your time playing football and starting on the team varsity team. It's like, were there any thoughts of maybe like going pro, or was it in the back of your mind saying, I want to play football in college and have a different career? Was there like any like small thoughts telling you that maybe I want to go pro? Or
Yeah. So I definitely wanted to go pro. In fact, a lot of my teammates, they went pro. So there was a lot of opportunities, but my last year at school, my knees were shot. I was in a lot of pain, and I said, gosh, I better use my brain, because this ain't going to last very long. And I got to admit, is when I started delivering kegs and my knees started hurting again, that's another like little extra incentive to go, boy, let me really figure out how to use my brain, because this body ain't going to last that long if I keep doing this.
I have another. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Ashok, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So the second point you mentioned, the saying hard work to beat talent when talent doesn't work hard, is something that I personally can relate to a lot based on my experience at Bellarmine with speech and debate and things. I was just wondering if you could elaborate more on some stories, or a story that stands out to you that sort of made that point, that drove that point home for you.
And which one? I know it was around hard work, but which was the bullet?
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Let me preface this by saying there are a lot of great schools out there. They're all great, and I say that to say, I went to Brown and I went to Wharton, which are great schools. And in my personal opinion, what I've seen professionally is they're equally as good as any other, like San Jose State or Santa Clara or Harvard or Stanford or University of Colorado. They're all the same. And why I kind of preface it with saying that is what I've started to see now is there's a lot of companies that are trying to avoid getting some of the top tier places
they think the work is beneath them. So folks like myself are at risk because they believe that the way we look at things is the work is beneath us, so we're not going to do it. So they'll go find people from a school where they don't care about hard work. They're just going to get it done. Nothing's beneath them. They'll keep doing it. And so I actually was told by my boss, someone who's a Stanford grad, go find people that are a little bit lower than Stanford, because we need people that are going to be workhorses at a startup world. We don't need thinkers. We need doers at the end of the day. So that's one in particular that it just kind of popped into my head, saying that it doesn't matter necessarily what school you go to. If you're not that type of person that someone picks up a phone and asks, hey, what's Ashok like? And they're saying he's a great thinker, loves to have a lot of ideas. But when it comes to the metal meeting the road, is he's not going to make it happen. That's one of those ones where you want to make sure you're that guy, the guy that people can rely on and get things done. So I've seen a lot of that. In fact, this whole coronavirus thing, last year, we were a company where we had about 9 months of cash before we were going to run out of money in March. Our investor said, you need to take that 9 months and turn it into 18. And my boss and I spent every day for the next 3 months running different scenarios, 2 to 3 hours. And I'm talking weekends and holidays and all that. 2 to 3 hours every day running through scenarios so we could save people at the end of the day. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thanks. I think we have Vijay next.
Yeah. So what is your insight about the long-term strength of the cybersecurity business? With all the breaches in the news, there must be a lot of demand for security products. And also, what excites you about your job?
Yeah. So to answer a little bit about long-term cybersecurity is, my wife is a Ukrainian immigrant, and we're always saying, God bless the Russians, because they keep hacking the living hell out of us, and it keeps the demand for cybersecurity going. That truly is a joke, let me just say. But with all seriousness, cybersecurity, it's really a very interesting battle. Is you have people who are incredibly smart and very motivated, and to try and take advantage of others. You have organizations that they have to fight every single instance of someone trying to come in and attack them. But the cyber criminals only have one opportunity that they need to get. They need to hack into that organization once. And so it's an unfair game that's being played. And so cybersecurity will continue to always, it's a cat and mouse game. It's going to constantly evolve and change and rotate around. And I always love the topic of cyber. So if you'd love to talk more, I'd love to give you more information. Huge topic, but it is forever going to be a growing industry, and it is going to continue to outpace a lot of other industries, in my personal opinion, because of how pervasive our digital landscape is now. And I think, Vijay, the second question was, what do I enjoy most about my job? Is that right?
Yeah.
So, as I said, is when I came out of my MBA, I really got a chance to think about what do I want to do and what do I love. Took a huge gamble going to a 20-person company with no sales and marketing. What I really loved was really working with a team, doing a lot of different things, constantly facing chaos and ambiguity, and solving problems and having teammates to solve problems. No one cared about themselves. They cared about the goal. They cared about making the company succeed. That's what I really loved and it does really kind of boil back down to, I forget who the other individual asked, is what about your times at football and your times at Bellarmine? Is, for me, I loved playing football. And a lot of it's about being selfless for the team's greater good and driving wins and getting across the finish line or getting into the end zone. It's a lot of the same with work. For me, at least, I love working with teammates and really succeeding and hitting goals and milestones and benchmarks. That's something that really excites me.
That was awesome. Daniel.
Yeah, I was wondering what kind of drove you to get your MBA and what like benefits and opportunities opened up from getting an MBA.
Yeah, so the original decision making was I really wanted to get into the investment management space. So, like somewhere in the hedge fund worlds or mutual funds, T. Rowe Price, those kind of places. So that's where I really wanted to go. Now, a lot of places, as Mr. Arnold was mentioning at the beginning, they require two things. One is a CFA, which is an accreditation that's outside that you can do on your own. You don't need any schooling or anything like that. The second, usually a lot of folks get their MBA as well. So it's just by the matter of, it's one of those benchmarks, the hurdles that you have to get over to get into the investment management space. So that was in part what kind of drove me. The other part too was making these incredible relationships with fantastic people. That was what drove me a little bit, but then I came to realize that that was much more of a valuable asset when I went to Wharton than anything else.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions, guys? All right. Mr. Danser, do you have any closing comments before we wrap this? And before we do that, I want to thank Mr. Danser for his presentation today. You know, as you can see, you know, I at the beginning of when I introduced him, I used the term scholar athlete, and you know, Tim was an excellent football player, but you can also tell he put an equal amount, if not more, effort into his studies. And you see really how diverse his experiences are. And again, he's such an impressive guy. And it's hard to believe he just graduated in 2006 from Bellarmine. So he certainly has a bright future.
Well, let's hope so, Mr. Arnold.
Yeah. I think he's going to transition over from CFO to CEO in the near future. So that's what I'm predicting.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. But yeah, so I guess the last words I would say is, you know, as I was saying, is you want to work hard and you want to, hey, guys, is a lot of this is luck. There's a lot of times where it's just God giving you a lot of blessings and you're getting good shots at the table. Take advantage of what you can. You know, put yourself out there. Go out and have times with friends and meet other people and lean into other experiences. They're invaluable at the end of the day. And most importantly, I saw this great podcast where it said, you know, is follow your passion, follow your passion. And it's true, you should somewhat follow your passion. But if your passion isn't something that you're going to get paid in a career-wise, it may be tough. What I recommend is be passionate about what you do. Sometimes you're going to hate what you do every day, but be passionate to do it. Be passionate about having an excellent job at every little thing that you do all the time. Take pride in your work and always strive to be the best. That's the best advice I can give you, as just be the best. If you be the best, success will follow. And there are going to be days where you hate what you do. Believe me, my last company, I loved what I did there, but there were days I hated. And there was a company I hated working for, but there were days I loved what I did. But if you do the best at what you do every day, eventually success will follow. And that's at least in my experience and what I would leave you with. I hope you guys all the best success and we all get to connect soon again.
All right, Tim. And again, thank you so much. And guys, before we sign off, let's bid Mr. Danser farewell and a go Bells.
Go Bells. Go Bells.
Go Bells. And guys, remember to tune in tomorrow to watch your Bellarmine Bells beat the St. Francis Lancers, 7 p.m.
I'll be there.